I have a question. How a narcissist? I'm not saying all managers are narcissists, but
Wait. Hey, can that be the intro, like the teaser before the podcast starts?
yeah. All right, James, take note. Welcome to the Friday Habit with Mark Labriola and Benjamin Manley. The Friday Habit is for small business owners, freelancers, and creatives who are ready to take their business to the next level. Join us as we discover how to apply the strategies we learned to grow our businesses, make more money, and live every day like it's Friday. And welcome back to another Friday Habit starring Benjamin Manley and Mark Labriola II.
Man, you must made me spit my water out with your dance moves there. I should not have taken a drink at that moment.
They're going to have to watch the YouTube version of this video to get that dancing gold.
Yep, that's right.
Put that shirt back on, okay? Yeah.
Let me finish buttoning my shirt back up. It gets pretty wild over here. It's Friday, you know. Well, hey, thanks for hanging out with us today. Today we got a great guest for you. Jack Skeels. He's got the skills to pay the bills, has over 11 years of experience as the CEO and founder of Agency Agile, Inc., where he helps agencies, digital shops, consultancies, and other project-driven organizations achieve higher productivity, quality, and happiness. Aren't we all looking for quality and happiness and the quality of our happiness? So, Jack, welcome to the Friday Habit.
Well, thanks, guys. So glad to be here.
Yeah, where are you based out of?
LA area, basically.
Okay.
Been here 40 years, but Chicago
Look at
originally.
you, dude. LA. You're 40 years. You were there when it was dirty and scary.
They built it around me, basically. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's come full circle. It's dirty and scary again.
Where are you guys now?
I'm out here in Denver, Colorado.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Nice.
I'm in Virginia.
Okay.
Yep.
Kind of bi-coastal. Yeah, nice.
Yep.
Exactly. We're all over. Yeah, we're like every place. East, center, west.
That's right.
It's
got
like
it all.
a certain show. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. So 40 years in LA. So you've spent a lot of time in the hustle and bustle. I feel like LA is one of the places where people go to get their dreams realized, whether it's tech or entertainment.
Or dashed. Yeah.
Or dash, yeah.
Usually
If you
both,
want to be a
yeah.
server the rest of your life with the hopes of getting the next commercial gig, come on down to LA.
Yeah, I came out here for technology originally, programmer and all that kind of thing, and then project manager. So I've been in the more mundane, but there's a lot of tech out here and startups and all that kind of thing. And I've been part of a bunch of them, built a couple myself, and so it's a cool place to live. It's as you said, it's getting a little long in the tooth with, things are not going quite so well in LA 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 Land as they used to, but it's all good. Yeah.
It's hard to leave that good food and that beautiful weather.
You got it. Except for the rain this year, we've been miserable, but aside from that, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very nice.
That's awesome. Who's like the most famous person you've run into when you're out and about eating your Mexican
so bad
lunch?
at this. I'm like, I think the most famous one. Oh no, that's right. So I'll tell you a real quick story. And I'm so bad with names. I don't belong. I should be banned from Los Angeles for this.
Your wife's like, hey, there's Kevin Costner. You're like, who's Kevin Costner?
Well, I'll recognize it. I was standing at outside of the dropped some names outside the Palm in Santa Monica, very nice restaurant, and I was talking to my wife on the phone. I said, "There's a guy next to me. Kind of looks like a smaller version of Mark Hamill," and then I literally said it like out loud, and I look over and he looks at me and he sort of smiles and nods his head. I'm like, oh shit.
You're like, Mark Hamill is small.
That's amazing.
Seriously, you're like, I'm standing next to Luke Skywalker.
He just looks at you.
He was cool about it though.
It is funny though how little a lot of mainstream actors are. On screen, right? They shoot it a low angle, make everyone look tall. Usually they're with a female who you think is maybe 6 foot tall, but she's actually 5'3" and he's only 5'6". So I feel like every time I look up someone's height, whether it's like Mel Gibson or Tom Cruise or somebody, I'm thinking, how are they so little?
Yeah, and they play next to Charlize Theron or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So LA. So you said you started in Chicago and then got into the tech scene and then started moving and shaking and starting your own businesses and finding all the flaws that are in the corporate environments and learning how to fix them. And so what is it? Like poor managers is the first thing that you noticed?
It is actually. It's so great. It's so great you bring that up. So probably like a lot of your listeners, I was sort of prodigal, sort of, sharp young kid and that kind of thing. And when I got out of college and landed here in LA at an aerospace company, I thought, man, managers are so stupid and useless. Because I knew all the latest stuff back then, right? And they didn't, right. and that kind of thing. And I literally, they just sort of got in the way, except for, signing paychecks or whatever, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I never really got over that, even though I became a manager later. I mean, I was, ironically, they promoted me into a management role, even though I despised them, kind of thing. But I've never lost that attitude that literally maybe we overrate managing, right? And maybe managers overrate their own managing and the like. And it's sort of it went from that sort of nagging idea. And even though I had built a management consultancy in the 90s, et cetera, I'm the most hypocritical person in the world, by the way. I teach on managing. I'm probably a horrible manager.
People are like, oh man, Jack's my boss.
But I can see, don't ask any of my people. Yeah. But I can see things, right? I just had that. I've always had that gift to sort of see through what's really going on and say something about it. And so that's, we've been kind of successful at that, in the last 14 years, transformed over 200 companies from being very top down, over managed to being very sort of, team based, empowering and all that kind of thing.
Explain to us unmanaged, like what the ideology or thought behind that word unmanaged, where does it come from?
Well, so it's partly the title. It's the title of the book, right? And the thing is, you need to pick a title that's provocative, right? That makes. And so if I said to you, my team is completely unmanaged, you, at least traditional corporate America, would say,
oh my God, chaos.
Oh my God, fire that manager. We need someone who can really manage, right? And the irony is that those unmanaged teams actually greatly outperform managed teams, right? And certainly rarely do any worse than managed teams. So this sort of brings up the question is, why are we paying for managers, or what should managers be doing? And that's the point of the book is, what should managers be doing? I do believe managers are needed. They're useful in certain situations. And the real question for managers is, how do I make sure I'm being valuable all the time and not spending my time in that non-valuable mode? So
you got a couple different concepts. The manager tax manifesto. I was curious about that. Like, what is that? And just kind of go into that a little bit for us.
The manager tax is a complex. It's got a bunch of pieces to it. I have like 5 or 6 manager taxes in the book that I name. But the basic idea is this, and that is that the activity of managing is actually contrary to the act of production. So this is not like some, little theory, hypothesis kind of thing. This has actually been proven in industrial and business services research. The harder you manage an organization, the lower its productivity. The more managers you have, the lower per person productivity inside the organization. And so but if you ask managers, here's the conundrum. If you ask managers, are you responsible for productivity? They'll all say yes. But if you actually know this fact from the research, then you know that the more they try to manage, the lower the productivity is. How can they be responsible for productivity unless they just stop managing?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's interesting you mentioned that. I had similar gut reactions. I mean, maybe a lot of people do, but similar feelings working in big corporate environments when I used to work in the corporate world. And I was just like, there's only a few good managers I feel like that I work with. And the majority I felt like were making decisions they weren't qualified to make instead of checking in with the professionals to make those decisions and like facilitating or getting things out of the way or giving people what they need. And it felt very unnecessary and very political. It just seemed like, okay, everything just got very political instead of focused on the best work or the best
answer. Yeah.
It seems to me, and I felt the similar, Ben. It's like most managers are like insecure, struggling with imposter syndrome. And so they have to over assert themselves into your work and into your processes in order to feel like they're actually doing something. Some of the best managers I've ever had were the people who pretty much just left me alone and gave me encouragement where I needed it to say, hey, you're doing really good in this area. And then some feedback in certain areas where like, hey, have you thought about maybe doing something in this way? And going throughout life, I always felt like those managers who were really, I don't even know what they were doing. They were doing their job or whatever, but they weren't really involved with me. That I felt like they were the best ones to work for.
Yeah, I think you guys are both spot on. I think there's a challenge here, which is you become a manager and all the skills you use to get to that role are pretty much useless, right? Because if you were a great developer or something like that, right, and you get to that spot where you're a manager, you don't all the things you did to become a great developer.
You're not developing anymore. It's like all my skills that make me a rock star are invalid.
So what happens a lot of times is we micromanage. We call it micromanage, but it's actually sort of macro managing. It's coming over the top and saying, no, you're being stupid for doing things that way. You should do it the way I think you should do it, which is the exact opposite of managing. It's like bullying almost, right? And it's this great irony. I think, Mark, you said it really well in terms of, it's a thing I used to call the lazy manager. When I first became a man, I was a great project manager for one reason, which is I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be that guy that was walking up to the other version of me sitting there going, who is this asshole coming to talk to me? And why are they interrupting my work? And what sort of stupid question are they going to ask? And I really went to this behavior, which worked out great. So that's the thing I put in the book is like, it's hard to be a great unmanager, if you will, but it's actually easy once you get how to do it. And, like other managers would ask me, how's the team doing? Or how's the project coming? And my answer would be, I don't know. Let me ask the team. It takes some bravery to do that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, the team members, put yourself in that spot. You don't mind asking that question. That's me coming by and going, how's it going, guys? I'm getting requests about when we think we're going to be done. What do you guys think? That's a cool conversation. That's a hip dad conversation kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So
here's some weed and alcohol, kids.
Afterwards.
Not that kind of dad. Yeah. Huh. Well, that's cool. Yeah. I feel like, relating to that, I just feel like that it seems that the teams that I've been a part of that have been most functional are when the managers don't come up with an arbitrary deadline, for example, or a top-down deadline from their boss, like, hey guys, we got to get this done, figure it out. It's more like they kind of get the information from the experts and say, hey, what do you guys think makes sense? What's a good estimate for this? And then those people, I feel like when you are managing them, they're much more likely to care and try to meet the deadline because they came up with it, rather than just like, oh, this is unrealistic, like it's not going to work. They're just going to fight you on it, I feel like. So I don't know, is that part of it too? Yeah,
I think so. So one of the things we call out in the book is called the ACE model: authority, control, empowerment. Okay? And managers should be in the authority role and the empowerment role. And authority is like, hey, our client would really love this by the end of the month. That's authoritative. It's the truth, right? It it isn't that we could get it done by the end of the month, right? But that's to your point, Ben, that's what I'd take to the team. I'd say, hey, our client would like it by the end of the month. What do you guys think are the best things for us to get done, if not all of it, by the end of the month? What would that take to do? What do you need? Now I'm going to empowerment mode, right? I'm saying, what do you need?
Yeah, this sounds very collaborative.
Completely.
It's like I'm drawn in because now all of a sudden we're having a conversation. You're pulling out of me a little bit of a confidence too to make a decision and give feedback, which then also creates a healthy relationship with the employee and manager, right? Where it's like, hey, what do you think we need to do? And it's like, oh, you're asking me? Now I am empowered to give you a response. Then maybe feel confidence coming to you if there's a hiccup or if we need to change things.
Absolutely.
Because you asked for it. You opened up for it.
Absolutely. And that experience in hearing it is I'm actually passing control to you. Okay. And one of the big things about unmanaging is actually releasing the need to have control. And you go all the way back to Ben's original point is if my manager says, hey, is that project going to get done on time? And I feel like he's saying, you better be in control of this. Now I've got to deal with that, right? And I've got to act like I'm in control with it. And I've got to lie. I'll go, of course it's going to be done on time, even though it may not be. And then I have to go to the team and say, damn it, get it done on time, right? And I've taken away their control. I had my control taken away. So it's a whole shift in the conversation.
Yeah, and that almost feels more like fear-based or something. Just like they're afraid of their boss, you're afraid of them, and so it's like I'm just going to buckle down and try to do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations, look, there are organizations that can do this kind of thing, that can tolerate it. There are clever managers that can do it in any organization, but there are also a lot of organizations that do have that sort of, if you're not in control of it, what am I paying you for? Right. If you can't drive your people, if you read resumes, by the way, for like director of project or program management, you read the verbs that they have in there. I drive teams. I force accountability. It's just like, oh my God, it's torture.
Guy riding a chariot, just whipping his horses as hard as he can. It's like the scene in Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're trying to get it done.
Yeah. So when you say ACE, authority, control, and empowerment, you're saying the things that good managers should focus on are just the authority and empowerment and not as much the control.
Yeah. Look, it's your job to make sure they're in control, but they need to be in control, right? And I actually have a long intro vignette that I talk about where I discovered just how well this works at the start of the book, where I handed a project over to the team that was out of control. It was flaming, it was just a hurtling, flaming fuel tanker plane heading towards a granite cliff kind of thing. No one was going to be spared, and they pulled it off. But I got rid of 7 managers that were hovering over the project, over managing it, and gave it to the 15 team members, and they made it happen.
Wow.
So what are the 4 key managerial moments? What's that about?
Yeah, so here's the thing. If I tell you you manage too much, your first answered question to me should be when. And part of my answer is, well, most of the time. And then you say, well, should I do stop managing? Well, yeah, most of the time, but when should I manage? And that's what the 4 key managerial moments are. And they're four ideas, and the first 3 ideas are probably the most actionable, and that is why, what, and go. And what typically happens is we don't explain the why. And this is the authoritative. In other words, here's why the client wants it. Here's why we need to have it done by the end of the month. Here's why my boss is breathing down my neck. Here's why, blah, blah, all that stuff, right? The reality is if I just tell people the what it is we need to do, and they don't know the why, they don't absorb the what. They just don't. This is just very well understood, but completely ignored. So I, as a manager, it's my job to make sure the people that are taking control of it really understand everything about the why. And that's a different style of conversation. That's this understanding the why looks like me saying, what do you want to know about the project? What do you want to know about the client? What do you want to know about their business? What do you want to know about why we're doing this project again, even though it failed last year? Okay, that's having that kind of town hall kind of and when you do that, all of a sudden, then when you talk about scope, everyone can get their head around it. So that's the what. And we do the what conversation the same way. Okay, let's talk about, what do you guys think we need to do? And I may know things they need to do, but I'm going to have them do it, right? Have them come up with scope, because they're all ridiculously capable, right? And then go is when they go to execute. And this is the moment where most managers spend most of their time is being all over people while they're trying to get work done, right? And this is the key moment for me to just stay away. And I think one of you said it earlier. Hey, let me know if you need anything. I'll be right over here in my office playing solitaire, right? Talking to my friends, but interrupt me, okay? And I'll get you anything you need. And that's it. So this sort of, when you fix this little trio, when you fix this little trio of moments, then all of a sudden work gets done really well. And you as a manager, all I have to do is get things set up and sit back and let the team do it, help them if they need it. And that lets me work on the fourth thing, the grow. Okay. Grow is when I think about, well, what do they need from me? How can I teach them? How can I give them some insights, tools, resources, whatever? That's when I actually make my team better.
That's so good. I feel like the first one you mentioned, why, is the one that resonates with me the most and seems to be overlooked so often that it kind of blows my mind, because I feel like if you're able to tell people the why of what's going on and why they're doing it, not only does it help them feel more invested and give them some purpose, because you have no purpose otherwise. Your purpose is to do the thing because I said so. That's not exciting or interesting, but it still gives purpose. But then also, you get so much better results because everything they do will be tailored towards that solution. Like if you just tell them what to do, like go build this platform, and you're like, I don't know why I'm building this platform. Like, oh, there's going to be a shed on it later. Then it's like, okay, well, knowing that, maybe I'm going to build the joists a little bit stronger. You know what I mean? It's like, I need to know that. Or it's like, oh guys, we shouldn't build a platform. We should just pour some concrete. That'll be way faster and stronger and last longer. You know what I mean? So it's like, if they know why, it's just a game changer.
Yeah, it creates a new kind of dialogue. I think the origin of it, it's kind of funny because the whole idea of doing that, it's called BA, B-A. It's a Japanese technique. And like so many of those other very cool 1950s, 1960s techniques like Kanban and lean and all that kind of stuff, the idea was this.
Haiku.
Everyone gets to know, right? That everyone has a right to know. And this is a societal thing in Japan, right? Which is that high or low in the society, you have a right to have a voice and actually to have questions and to learn and the like. I think our industrial management model, where it was, factories with, untrained farm workers and immigrants coming in, maybe didn't speak English. We developed this managerial mindset, which is just do what I tell you, don't ask questions, because you probably won't understand my answer anyways. And our workforce, first of all, Japan has always had, non-college educated workforces in factories, and they understand pretty well. We're all human beings. But our workforce, especially like in the organizations that your listeners are part of, everyone's wicked stupid. And if you don't know something, it's YouTube or TikTok or whatever. I'm going to find out in 5 minutes, right? So there's really no reason to withhold things from people for lack of knowing, right, or ability to understand.
That is so interesting. I feel like there's so many holdovers from the past, like 40, 50 years, even in the educational system. I think I heard somewhere that the classroom and how it's set up, where it's like everyone in a row facing the front, like that was just part of getting people prepared to get in an assembly line and listen to the teacher and do the task.
Yeah,
so
very much.
It'll be interesting to see.
I was gonna say, I was just thinking the same thing, Mark, because I've been looking at like alternative types of schools and different learning models, and there's some that I've seen that are more like these, almost like co-working hubs that are all around different countries that you can go to, and then when the kids go there to learn, they have like a coach basically, but the kids get to like come up with their own, like they have to achieve a certain amount of stuff by the end of the year, but they can come up with their own kind of plan of like, okay, what time of day do you want to come in and do your schoolwork? And they can like, oh, I have to be here 5 hours a day. Which 5 hours do I want to be here? Who do I want to work with? Who else on the team do I want to kind of to get along to help me on my project, you know, so you have some like autonomy to do that. And I feel like that's such a cool educational model that it kind of goes along with what you're saying. Instead of top down, you have to learn this and it doesn't matter why, you just need to score this on the test. Instead, it's like, here's a project you need to do. You need to learn these things to make this project happen. How do you want to do it?
Yeah. You know, I had a colleague back years and years ago who went to a college called Deep Springs College, which was in the California mountains. And it was one of those things like that where you'd show up and they said, okay, you need to earn some credits in history. What do you want to learn in history? Right. And you had to come up with good questions. And so the exercise of college is not that you remember who Mark Antony is versus Julius Caesar, but that you learn how to think about things and how to solve problems and how to ask questions. And instead of focusing on facts, we focus on skills, right? And absolutely, I think those things are so much more valuable. And that goes to the heart of unmanaging, which is we assume that everyone we're working with as a manager, everyone we're working with has this desire to learn and problem solve. And this was built into us over 400,000 years of evolution, right? Okay. We're the descendants of some wickedly badass people who survived, you know, all kinds of horrible weather and beasts and diseases and famines and all that kind of thing. They solved shit. Okay. We all have those genes inside of us. Don't pretend for a moment that those genes went away. They're still there and you can activate them.
Ben, I'd be curious to hear a little bit about your journey, because you started off as a solopreneur and then you created systems and processes and you put people into roles at your company.
Yeah.
And then over the past year, you kind of worked yourself out of those roles and you went kind of more just into like a managerial position into the business. What do you think helped you do that, or what were some of your fears?
Man, that's a great question. I think that right now, well, I would say the steps towards it and things that have helped me, things that I've failed at and things that I've succeeded at over time, I think are, one is as a manager, which I feel like nowadays, I feel like I'm not managing as much as like my director is. My director's kind of managing day-to-day operations, but I am still kind of responsible at the end of the day for making sure everyone's performing well, you know? One tool, and I was actually going to ask you about this, Jack, so this kind of leads into that as well, but one tool I had to put in place because I'm kind of like a peacemaker type person, so I don't like to have hard conversations with people, you know? And I've always tried to hire people that are self-directed enough to where I'm not going to have to get on them to get their stuff done. You know what I mean? So some of the things I've done in my company are I've kind of built in accountability externally to clients in a way, instead of me having to be the person they're accountable to. So for example, when we do projects for websites that we build, I have a system where our client experience administrator, you know, schedules the meetings, and then that person knows my job is to show up for these meetings that are scheduled. They take those meetings. Once they're booked, those are pre-scheduled on certain days. You know, they show up and they're going to be face-to-face with the client. I know they want to make that client happy, you know, and I know they're going to do a good job. But there's never really a situation where it's unclear what the next step is to do or whose role it is. And so because of the clarity, I think that really helps people manage themselves, because it's very clear what needs to be done next. You know what I mean? It's systemized enough. So I think in that way, I never have to check and be like, hey, where are you at with this project? Because I know they're directly accountable to seeing that client on a certain day to deliver that thing and present it to them. And so that's just a logistical thing, but that has definitely helped me. But I would say with the part where it's like the peacemaker part of me not wanting conflict and stuff, I've had to grow in that over the last few years, and I've definitely gotten better at it. But what I had to do for me is set up a couple of things. One is I set up a system.
Trap door in your office that just
I can
goes
just
to
escape.
the sharks. You can escape, or there's a button that sends people down to alligators.
Exactly. For them to escape.
Yeah. It's like, you know what? I don't want to have this conversation. To the sharks.
Haven't tried that one. I should look into that. I do have a trap door here in the treehouse. I guess I could use this. But all right. So a couple of things. One is for managing my team, something that I always cared about a lot from my managers, made a big difference, is when my managers would listen to ideas I had and actually make changes to make things better, right? And so I never wanted to be, like you said, Jack, it's like I never want to be that guy. I never want to be the guy that's like, oh, you have an idea to make things better? Well, sorry, we can't change that. This is just the way it is. You know what I mean?
We have other projects going on.
Exactly.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
So it's like there's no time set aside for improvements, so I know it's always going to suck. So basically you take away people's hope, right? So to me, that's why actually the name of the podcast is the Friday Habit, because we set aside one full day each week to work on the business instead of in the business. So that means we don't have any client works on Fridays. Throughout the week, team members can post any ideas that they have to make the business better, or any problems they run into a Slack channel. Then they know, as a team, on Friday morning, we're all going to look at that Slack channel and be like, okay, hey, you mentioned that this problem keeps happening every time we go into a project. And then we're all right, guys, what can we do? And it's just what you're saying. I'm not telling them the solutions. I'm saying, what can we do? Everybody comes around and solves it together. So that's like one thing that's helped a ton. The other thing would be...
Can I jump in on
please,
that?
Go ahead, Jack.
Can you stick a pin in the second? Because I want to hear the second one.
Yeah.
Look,
go ahead.
What you just said, I mean, there are all kinds of interesting things in what you guys just have been talking about.
Yeah.
One of them that I think a lot of people don't get, and probably a lot of your listeners are familiar with doing, for example, retrospectives, right? Every week or two or month, that kind of thing. And one of the big mistakes is a mistake you did not make in your description. Okay. And one of the big mistakes is, fine, we're going to do a retrospective. We'll make sure everyone speaks, and we'll do all those techniques and the like. But at the end, we'll put up a set of action items, and we'll identify all the things that are going to change. And we're going to assign that to one of our PMs or something like that. Right. Okay. It never works. It never works. Okay. The road is littered with the bones of those people holding those rolled up Post-it posters in their hands, dead bodies on the ground. The only way it really works is exactly what you did, Ben, is that, well, unless you guys stop doing it, it's going to keep on happening. What do you think you need to do, or what do you need from someone, right? So it's got to be a holistic, team-owned solution, and only that. And we've seen this happen. We've had managers, we're in training in an organization, the manager's like, well, shouldn't we be fixing that? I'm like, no, you should wait until they're so pissed off about saying it over and over again that they go, we're going to fix this, and here's what we need. It's a completely different outcome. So kudos to you, Ben, for actually getting that right. That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, trial and error, eventually figured it out. But yeah, I think so. There's that aspect. The other thing I was going to mention, ask you about your approach to this is, basically I got to the point where I found myself over time, I had avoided having hard conversations. This was years ago, until it got so bad that I was like, this is going to be very uncomfortable because I should have brought this up when it first happened. Right. Yeah. So first of all, my approach now, if something happens, as much as possible, address it in the moment without embarrassing someone. So if I need to take them aside or talk to them afterwards, in more in a curious way, ask about it, not in a judgmental way, because sometimes it might be something like, hey, I noticed you seemed like a little more riled up than usual in the meeting today. Is everything okay? Almost like, hey, you're usually pretty chill. Is everything all right? And not judging them right away. So there's that. But then the other thing is like I guess what I ended up doing is setting up quarterly reviews. So I do a quarterly performance review instead of a yearly one. And it was just like a list of very high level objective, and I probably just got them from the internet, but it was just stuff like productivity, attendance, quality of work, just some really basic stuff, maybe like 10 or 12 things. And then a scale where I could kind of rate it 1 to 4, was it excellent, good, fair, or poor? And then basically it would force me to have a conversation with them once a quarter, like, let's look at this together. And it would be more of a conversation. It wouldn't be as much like, hey, here's where you're doing really bad and here's where you're doing good. I'd be like, here's what I'm seeing from my perspective if I was to judge this from the outside. But like, let's talk about each one. Tell me, like, what do you think it's rated? Do you think that I'm right? Was I unfair to rate you as poor on this, or do you think that's right? And so that's been my approach to make it a little more conversational. But sometimes I do wonder, it's like, is that the best approach to? Because it still does put me in a position of power a little bit, right? So I'm like, is that the best approach
you
or
are
not?
So close.
Okay, all right.
You are so close. You're just a little. So you've done a lot of things right. Okay.
All right.
One is have an independent scorecard. This is our scorecard, right? Okay. Everything you're talking about doing it quarterly or whatever is nice. You don't want to do it once a year. I totally agree.
Okay.
Don't drive the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. They show up and you say, "How do you think you've been doing on development?" Okay. Tell me your thoughts. How would you score yourself on development? And then use questions throughout that process. They say, I think I'm probably about a 3 and blah, blah, blah. And so you can say, what do you think you have as gaps in terms of development? Right? You may know an answer, okay, but take the long route there with questions. So they'll name some gaps, but you're thinking of a specific one, like they haven't really mastered some tool or something. And you say, what about tools? What about tools that you need to learn how to use? Where are you with your mastery of tools? And they'll name some, and you can even eventually name the tool. How about that one? How are you doing with that? But now you've gotten them to think the way you're thinking about them, okay? So that's the way to use a scorecard, is to not be the owner of the answer, but to be the owner of the questions around the scorecard.
Okay, dang, that's really good. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I like that a lot, because I do feel like me giving the first answers makes them feel nervous and resistant,
totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Which I would too. And that's what feels weird about it. Is like, I don't want to judge you. I feel like I'm supposed to be your coach and help you grow and improve. But
Here's the thing.
Yeah. Anyway, go
let me
ahead.
help you with it. Okay. Here's this, because a lot of people run into this. I think it's just worth making sure we get this in the podcast.
Yeah.
They judge themselves more harshly than you will. Okay. You judging them harshly just amplifies that and is a negative. Okay. You letting them know that it's okay that they're judging themselves harshly, right? You let them know that it's okay that they're learning and figuring it out. That's the thing to do. That's the empowering thing. Okay. You don't need to do the come over the top piece. Look, first of all, if they're not doing that, then you know that already, because they're not trying. Okay. It's the internal voice of, can I be good enough? Can I do this? I want to be better. I tie my ego to my success. It's all that stuff, which are essential ingredients in a knowledge worker. If they've got that stuff, they don't need your help to feel bad about what they haven't accomplished.
Yeah.
They're plenty good at that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I had that situation where it's like, I feel like I was just piling on to something that and I was being nice about it, or trying to be like, hey, it's all right. Here's this objective that I'm seeing. We can figure it out. But, maybe I say that and it hit a nerve, because they already knew that. And they were like, I know, I thought the same thing. And you noticed it too. And they kind of broke down, and they weren't resisting it. But at the same time, like, man, that kind of sucks. If they could come to me and just be the first one to say that, then that's a big difference. And I 100% agree with you. It makes a ton of sense.
Cool.
I have a question. How a narcissist, I'm not saying all managers are narcissists, but
Wait, hey, can that be the intro, like the teaser before the podcast starts?
Yeah, all right, James, take note.
I'm not saying...
but okay, as a narcissist, I'm not a narcissist.
Revealing.
I know, right? Oh, here we go. No, but I guess what I'm trying to say is this, is that a manager, like, how do we as managers, how do we assess ourselves to get better, right? A lot of times you get to this role, you finally made it, you got the pay increase, you got several people underneath you, and you're like, yes, now I just don't want to screw this up, and I want to, again, like you were saying earlier, how if you got promoted from a role where you were doing and you were the rock star because you were awesome at coding or doing whatever task was needed to be done, and now you're overseeing the people and you're tempted to get in there and do things the way that you did them and all these other kind of things. How do we assess ourselves or be self-aware enough as managers to say, okay, I need like a quiz or something like that to say, what is a good manager? What is a bad manager? How do I stack up? And then what do I need to do in order to become a good manager?
Yeah. So first thing, to become a good manager, you need an awareness that you may not be a good manager, right? It's the whole, how do I get better at something, right? Okay.
Admit you have a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. My name is Jack. I'm a manager.
I'm a narcissist and a manager.
Narcissistic manager, especially. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that the narcissism claim, which is not without its basis, right? Certainly comes from behaviors that are insecurities in the manager, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't know what to do otherwise, and therefore either I'll be assertive, manic about it, right, or needy, right, and I need you to praise me, and that you see all that stuff. By the way, in The Office, Michael's role, he does literally every line is one or the other of those, right?
Yeah. Right.
So the thing we want for a manager to do, you admit that you've got this challenge going on, and what you really want to know is, are you doing everything that needs to be done to make people productive, to enable people to be productive? Yeah. And there's no way you can judge that. There's only one set of people who can judge that, and that is those people whom you are trying to make productive. Yeah. And the best survey technique for managers is to ask everyone, how, on a 1 to 10 scale, how good am I at helping you become productive every day? How good am I at helping you use your talents to their maximum? How good am I at helping you develop your skills? All those things I should be doing as a manager, ask them, how am I doing it? And what else do you need? Okay. And that's the best survey. I tell a story in the book. A story in the book of Ben, this amazing CEO who just he totally got me. 120, which people will drool at this number. 120 person organization, 8 managers. Impossible, right? Totally impossible. And he said, basically, I did every time I thought I needed a manager, I said, I'm going to do the opposite and figure out some way to do it without a manager. That's how he got there. And he says, I have great managers too. I said, well, how do you make sure you have great managers? He goes, well, we survey all the workers every year, 4 times a year actually, and say, of all the managers you've worked with, for each one, do you give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down in terms of them helping you get your job done? So the managers know this is the survey, right? Yeah. So the question is, I don't want any thumbs down. Yeah, this is like the Yelp for managers, exactly. So, and I'm like, wow, well, what happens if a manager gets a thumbs down? And Ben says, they have to talk to me. I'm like, okay, that's sort of a vague thing, but then he doesn't say anything else. I'm just waiting, and he's waiting me out. It's so fun. I'm thinking, oh, he just baited me. I said, okay, Ben, what happens when they get a second one? He says, nobody gets a second one. So it's just an amazing organization that way. It was a lightweight organization, really happy people, teams, back to your point, Ben, teams that were directly client interacting. It was a real model of an organization, doing a lot of things right, even when I showed up for the first time.
So do you think a red flag for a manager is if they're super busy?
Okay, so I'm gonna give you the funny answer. As long as they're interacting with other managers, distracting them from interrupting workers, no, that's great. Okay, if they can just take the whole phalanx of managers out for the day, just wipe them out with stupid questions and shit, that's great. If they're interacting, you look at the frequency of interaction with the workers, and the more that is, the lower the productivity of the workers. And this is the problem, by the way. This is the problem with our modern matrix management organization. Okay, is that now I have more managers than ever that can interrupt a worker. And unlike the old days where the worker just had one manager, and if there's not a lot of productivity, then I got to say, what's the manager doing wrong, or is it the wrong worker? Now there's nobody to blame because everybody's to blame. Right? Yeah. In other words, I had to be in 17 meetings this week. With who? Well, everyone, Yeah. And so we start blaming workers for lack of productivity when in fact it's managers creating this massive non-productive activities that no one is charging them for, if you will.
Just to clarify, when you say modern matrix organizations, are you talking about the type of model where there's a team member could be on multiple teams and basically have multiple managers at different levels for different projects?
Yeah. You'd have that. You'd have account managers. You've had project managers. You've got your department manager. You've got multiple clients. So you probably have multiple account managers. That kind of thing. And you may even have direct interaction on the client side too, right? And so all of a sudden you've got 9 managers who at any given moment can interrupt you, right? It's horrible.
Right. I see. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Wow, man, this has been an awesome conversation. Very, very fruitful and enlightening. So I appreciate you just sharing all this stuff with us. And again, just that idea of not wanting to be that guy, right?
Don't be that guy. That's my advice. Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. So make sure you're evaluating yourself as you're moving into these roles, as you're being a rock star, what you do. That's right. And go get the Unmanaged book by Jack Skeels. Jack, we like to wrap up the show with a few things, and one of them is Ben's copious note-taking.
Copious note-taking, yeah. It's a little out of control today because there's a lot of good stuff.
So much gold. All right. Yeah. So just give me your top, what do you want? Top 3, top 5? I'll give you anything you want today, Ben.
We'll just see what happens.
Okay.
A couple of things you said, Jack, that really stuck with me. You said, everyone has an innate desire to learn and improve. You said people judge themselves more harshly than you will. And so when you're driving or when you're having a quarterly performance review, don't drive the conversation or don't drive the evaluation. Have people evaluate and score themselves. You said also the best way to find out how you're doing as a manager is ask your employees how you're doing as a manager. Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. And finally, don't be that guy.
Cool. Nice job. Very nice.
Jack, we like to leave people with a action item to start next week. Monday morning, they're geared up. They're ready to take on the week. It's going to be the best week ever, and they want to start working on themselves to be better versions of themselves. What is the one tip that you would say, hey, starting next week, do this to become a better manager?
I think the top thing would be stop. Stop what you're doing and always just think about whether what you're doing is adding to productivity. Okay? In other words, am I just randomly interrupting people? Do I really need this meeting? Just stop and think about it and notice whether you're just trying to be busy, whether you're just trying to be that neurotic, narcissistic manager, or whether you're just, maybe you can just sit back. Because if your team's getting the work done, then your job is done. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just sitting back and you've worked hard. A lot of people feel like if they're not in the thing, then their boss is going to be like, what are you doing? And it's like, no, like I've worked hard. I've gotten to this place and now I can just be a good resource for the people underneath me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And letting go. I feel like so many people are stressed and anxiety and fear and they're just, and it's like, haven't you worked your whole life to get to this point? I'm like, why are you more stressed?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Well, awesome. Well, hey, if people wanted to connect with you, get your book, I'm sure it's everywhere books are sold. But if they wanted to connect with you,
there's only one place that books are sold these days.
That's right.
And it's
Amazon.
There. No, it is other places, but I can tell you empirically that no one buys it anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. We go look at it in the bookstore and then we buy it on Amazon.
Exactly.
But where would be a good place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Jack Skeels that looks like me. Certainly, there are very few of us in the world. Connect with me on LinkedIn. You can visit us at agencyagile.com, and we work with all kinds of organizations, not just agencies. And we kind of don't do Agile anymore either, so we're changing that name, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, reach out. We'd love to hear from you, certainly.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to have you on when you write your next book.
That's a deal.
All right. Sounds good. Well, hey, thanks so much for tuning into The Friday Habit. If you go to thefridayhabit.com, there you can find show notes for this episode. You can also find our websites, ways to get in touch. And at the bottom of the site, you can get the Friday Habit system that's going to show you how to spend more time working on your business instead of in your business.
That's right. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, send us an email if you want at hello@thefridayhabit.com.
That's right. And until next time, live every day like it's Friday.